Aight, so our main character totally bit the dust as a complete nobody, but fate was like, nah, second chance, and zapped him into some noble's body. He got stuck with a territory that was a total dumpster fire, super corrupt people were starving, and enemies were just waiting to jump him. But get this, using all the smarts from his past life, he's building up an army, getting his lands all tech-savvy, and basically forging a kingdom that's gonna defy all the odds. The whole story kicks off with some doctor freaking out, screaming for help, telling the crew to get the patient on a ventilator. Meanwhile, our boy Jan was just gasping for air. His chest was heaving and his heart was going nuts like it was about to straight up quit. Jan, a super dedicated industrial mechanical designer, for the last 20 years was literally on the brink of life and death. His non-stop grind had gotten him nothing but L's and a vibe of being lonely AF. Now that crazy hustle was finally catching up to him, totally wrecking his mental health and leaving him in this sketchy state. From the second he was born, Jan's life was just one big tragedy. Some gnarly car crash took out his parents, leaving him to figure out the world all on his own as an orphan. Even though things sucked, Jan kept grinding, holding on to this hope that one day life would recognize his hustle and see him as a success. But yeah, that day never showed up. After he graduated, he landed a trash job with garbage pay that barely kept him from going broke. For 2 whole decades, his personal life was just as grim. He spent his entire life solo, like he'd never even experienced the vibe of holding someone's hand. And now it looked like his lonely journey was about to be over. Jan, can you hear me? The voice of his best bud cut through all the chaos, sounding super worried, trying to pull him back from the edge. But Jan couldn't stop wondering what the point of a life like his even was. Like, did an existence like that even matter? As he got hit with this killer exhaustion, he thought, maybe I'll just crash for a bit. The next time he opened his eyes, the scene around him was totally different. He was in some crazy fancy room decked out with silk curtains and a lit crystal chandelier. How bougé the place was made him panic for a sec, thinking he'd somehow blown all his life savings on some ridiculously extra hospital room. Then a notification just popped up in front of him. Welcome to the magical continent of Elda. It hit him like a ton of bricks. Could this actually be one of those Isekai situations ripped straight out of a manga? In this bizarre new world, Jan found out he was now called Ren. Totally confused, he tried to make sense of what was happening, but he was getting zero answers. A week went by in this fantasy world, and Ren found himself living the dream with servants waiting on him hand and foot. Little by little, he started figuring out the real deal with his situation. Turns out he had actually died, and was somehow reincarnated into the body of Ren Edgar, the 3rd son of the Duke from the Edgar family. Ren had an older sister and a big bro, and they both had been super protective of him since they were kids. A little bro, eat this. You're a growing boy, you can't be hungry, his sister insisted, putting this amazing spread in front of him. Then his brother handed him a glowing bottle, explaining, this is magic water. They say it boosts your magic power and it cost me a fortune to get. Even his mom was in on making the whole vibe super welcoming. Hooking him up with a fresh new shirt, she made herself telling him to rock it, since he was like the baby of the fam and totally spoiled. Ren was living this super bougé life, no cap. But even while he was vibing with all the fancy stuff, he low-key felt like he didn't belong in this world. He was always questioning why he got so lucky, but to chill himself out, he figured it was probably payback for all the hard stuff he went through. In his last life, for real. The world of Elda was sick, though. Magic literally powered everything, all the infrastructure. The Coral Empire, which was the biggest human nation on the continent, was a total mix of different races, including elves and dwarves, and the Edgar family's influence was massive. They were in charge of a territory that was like 300,000 square kilometers, and their domain had these amazing fields and a huge castle, and a population of over 1 million people. Being a noble, Ren had everything he could ever want, from dope clothes to his own personal maid. Still, every time he'd look in the mirror, he'd see John's face staring back at him, a super creepy reminder of his past life. One day, Ren's deep thinking session got cut short by Lai, a super pretty and cheerful maid who let him know his dad wanted to see him. She led him to the study where his dad Aline was checking out reports on their lands. Ren greeted him with that practiced, polite, noble kid vibe, just waiting for his dad to say something. Aline looked at his son with a dead serious face, his tone all heavy when he asked, "You know why I called you in here?" The seriousness of the moment was making Ren uncomfortable, but he just answered softly, "Nah, Dad." The Duke leaned back in his chair, his tough guy act softening up a bit. "Ren, you're old enough to manage your own territory now. Have you even thought about where you'd want it to be?" The question totally floored Ren, and his surprise turned into major confusion as he asked, kind of shaky about inheriting land. Aline sighed at how clueless his son was, explaining that it was just the custom for the noble Ren's age to take over a territory. As he said it, he got up from his chair. The Duke walked over to a huge map on the wall. "The territory you'll be running is in the northwest. It's relatively safe. But the lack of mages has made the food supply a problem that just won't go away." His tone got way more serious as he continued, "Even though our territory is stable for now, the future of the Coral Empire is sketchy, Ren." Ren silently agreed with his dad's take. The royal family was slipping, and the whole political system was a hot mess. It had led to a totally fractured empire. The lords were constantly beefing with each other, with all these rivalries and shady plots going on. It was a dangerous web of competition that just got more tangled over time. Since he'd been reborn Ren, had felt a warmth and affection he'd never known before. This newfound love had made him determined to protect the people who genuinely cared about him. Watching his son get lost in thought, Aline got worried, wondering if he was putting way too much pressure on Ren. To ease the tension, he promised his son he wasn't in this alone. Aline reminded Ren that he had his older brother, his sister, and his dad to back him up. But Ren looked like he just had an idea. He looked at his dad with this new determination, and in a serious voice he asked if fixing the food supply problem would make their territory safer. Aline smiled at Ren's enthusiasm, but he saw his son's plan as way too simplistic. He explained that solving the food problem took more than just passion. It demanded, like, a super detailed plan and a slow burn execution. But Ren wasn't thinking basic, he was tapping into all of humanity's collective knowledge, the stuff built from countless industrial revolutions. With unshakable confidence, he straight up declared that he'd take on the whole food crisis problem. Ren's journey to his new stomping grounds started. Island City, the remote territory he'd been assigned, was a place with hella potential, but also a ton of challenges. To the north, it bordered the territory of the big shot Duke Ryan, a sworn enemy, and to the west were the mysterious lands of the elves, and to the south was just this huge unexplored ocean. The location was so strategic it had turned into a constant battlefield, leaving its good farmland totally barren, its people scattered, and its resources completely drained. As the carriage took him toward Island City, Ren got lost in the documents that broke down his new domain. Leah, his loyal ride-or-die, watched him, a worried look plastered on her face. Ren knew that to bring the territory back to life, he'd have to grow its population, since a strong workforce was the backbone of any industrial glow-up. He got how massive the challenge was, but he was confident his efforts would totally succeed. Ren wasn't starting from scratch, though. He had a special skill in his back pocket, a gift from the system. Human Resources Scan. This ability let him scope out and pinpoint talented people with zero effort. After testing the skill on his own family, Ren had a solid idea of what the world considered top-tier talent. His first priority when he got to Island City was crystal clear: find some absolute rock stars who could help him rebuild the territory. Meanwhile, Leah was remembering the Duke's order support. Ren and make sure he didn't cause a total mess in the region. She silently prayed Ren wouldn't screw things up in Island City. The city lord's place was filled with some serious tension. A guy who was visibly stressing reported that the Duke's youngest son would be there soon. He suggested they make some moves to get ahead of it. However, the man, in a mask sitting across from him, just shut down the concern with a cold, calculated reply. He told them to wait for more orders and to not lay a finger on Ren, for now. His chill exterior was hiding some major fury, as he talked about making Aline pay for her past screw-ups. The blonde guy nearby was way less composed, nervously shaking over his fake financial records and the taxes he'd pocketed. But the masked dude just laughed it off, clowning on Ren as some playboy who was too clueless to ever notice details like that. The only thing they needed to do was slide him some useless documents when he arrived. The blonde guy reluctantly agreed and went to get ready for Ren's arrival. As Ren's carriage got close to the outskirts of Island City, he looked out at the abandoned fields and farmland. His face got super serious as he took in the scene. He asked Leah for a map and carefully checked out the surroundings. His eyes zeroed in on the river to the west and the port to the south. All of a sudden, an idea hit him: divert the river and build a canal to connect it to the sea. It could totally breathe new life into the land. Ren's thoughts were cut off by a desperate scream. A young girl was on her knees in the dirt, clinging to the leg of a man who was probably her dad, and he looked dead set on going to a casino. The kid pleaded through her tears, begging him not to gamble away the last of their money, meant for her mom's treatment. Her voice was all shaky as she explained that losing the cash would basically be a death sentence for her sick mom. The dude, totally consumed by greed, just roared at the little girl to let go. His faith in Lady Luck made him completely blind to how desperate she was. When the kid refused to let go, he totally snapped and raised his hand, ready to clock her. But before he could land the hit, Ren jumped in with a quick right hook, sending the guy to the ground. Ren's eyes were blazing with fury, though he was honestly kind of shook right after. I mean, it was the first time he'd ever actually thrown a punch. Lai rushed over to him, her face full of concern, and gently called him out. She said that next time he thought about decking someone, he should at least give her a heads up so she could bring some protective gear. Ren just laughed, brushing off her worry. He explained the punch was a total spur-of-the-moment decision. No time to prep. As he talked, he walked over to the guy sprawled on the ground, telling Lai to go check on Seguro while he handled the gambler. The guy, still holding his face, was just staring at Ren in total disbelief. Ren's glare was super sharp and full of disgust. He laid into the guy for taking his family's money and blowing it all on gambling, and then even trying to get physical with his own daughter. The gambler scowled and tried to clap back, asking who the heck Ren thought he was butting into his business. Ren took another step closer, his vibe super intimidating. He warned the man that it didn't matter who he was if he ever found him. Near a casino again, the consequences would be gnarly. The ice-cold tone and threatening attitude from Ren made the dude turn pale with fear. Stuttering, the gambler promised to stay away from casinos for good, and then totally bolted from the scene. Feeling pretty good about how he handled that, Ren turned to the little girl who was still just frozen in shock. Worried, he asked if she was okay and fired up his system to scan her condition. The girl Lillian bowed her head to say thanks, just thanking him over and over again. She explained how losing that money would have meant losing the only shot at saving her mom's life. While she talked, Ren was studying the system screen, and he got super intrigued looking at her stats. While most of them were pretty average, one unique attribute totally stood out: her potential in farming and harvesting. Recognizing this hidden talent, Ren decided right then and there to recruit her for his big plans to restore the land. He gave her a warm smile, figuring she was probably headed to the city to find a doctor for her mom. He suggested she should just roll with their group since they were headed there too. Lillian hesitated, worried she'd get their cart dirty, but Ren just gave her a chill smile to calm her down. He explained that a cart is just a vehicle. Just some wooden planks nailed together, and that there's really no such thing as clean or dirty when you're just trying to get from A to B. Besides, he had a few questions for her. Suddenly, Ren's tone got dead serious. He asked why there was even a casino in such a broke-down area. He remembered all the crap the region had been through recently. Last fall, soldiers sent by the big shot Duke Ryan had attacked, causing a massive number of casualties. Then at the beginning of spring, these insane floods just wrecked the whole land, leaving its people just scrambling to survive. The streets of Isle City were totally scarred from all these events, with beggars all over the roads and a vibe of pure desperation everywhere you looked. As they were walking through the wrecked streets, Ren was like, "Okay, I def need to get a head count of everyone to see who can actually work." But first he was planning on hitting up the city lord's mansion to check out the emergency cash and see how much they had stashed away to fix this place up. Ren asked Lillian where the mansion was, but before she could even answer, some dude's scream totally cut them off. This blonde guy on a horse was just blasting down the street, yelling at everyone to get out of his way, like he didn't even care about the chaos he was causing. He was being so reckless and dangerous, but Lai had insane reflexes and yanked Ren out of the way just in time to dodge the galloping horse. The rider just dipped into the distance, not giving a crap about the mess he made. Lai, though, was giving him the ultimate death stare. In her mind, anyone who even tried to mess with Ren deserved to get totally wrecked, and her grip on him got super protective. He was literally struggling to breathe and finally got her to notice. She let go of him real quick, apologizing and asking if he was hurt. Ren just chilled her out with a smile, thanking her for the quick save. Getting serious again, Ren asked Lillian if she knew who that rider was. Shaking a little, she explained he was the young boss of the Elswin family, whose family was loaded because they owned all the casinos in Island City. Ren's whole vibe changed. He looked super interested now. This was a major opportunity to get cash for his plans. He asked Lillian to take him to one of the casinos, but she tried to talk him out of it, worried he'd lose all his money. But Ren was totally confident, promising her the casino wasn't getting a single cent from him. Seeing how determined he was, Lillian couldn't help but wonder, who even was this noble kid for real? Pretty soon, Ren rolled up to the casino. The building was like a total flex compared to the rundown structures around it. It was basically screaming rich versus poor. There were guards at the door, but Ren walked right up like he owned the place. A little smirk appeared on his face as he thought about his master plan. He was going to take this place for everything it had to fund his industrial projects. Inside the casino, the vibe was a chaotic mix of noise and pure desperation. Gamblers were begging for loans, totally convinced they could win back their losses on the next round. Others were celebrating tiny wins or crying over huge L's. Ren was just watching the whole scene, being super judgy. He realized that as long as this casino was around, the people of Island City would never have any motivation to actually work. Liz, who was close to Ren, whispered to him that his soldiers had the casino surrounded. She asked if it was go time, but Ren, staying super chill, told her to hold up. He wanted to lock down an even bigger target. While he was just standing there, some casino employee walked up to him with a fake polite smile and asked what game he wanted to play. Ren just smiled back, playing dumb, and admitted he wasn't really familiar with gambling at all. But he said he wanted to try a few rounds and asked the staff member to recommend an easy game. Totally sensing an easy target, the employee suggested a dice game and handed Ren 2 complimentary chips. He claimed they were on the house so Ren could try his luck. Ren took them, acting all happy about it. The game started and Ren just casually tossed the 2 chips onto the little betting spot. Seeing this, the 2 casino workers gave each other a smug look, totally sure their little scam was working. The dice rolled fast, landing on a 6 and a 6, a sick roll. The employee faked being nice, comforting Ren and telling him he almost won. Ren played right along, totally nailing his part. He acted all shocked at how fast the game ended, said it was kinda lame and was like, "I'm hungry," turning to bounce. But then the employee got right in front of him, blocking his way. The whole polite act vanished, replaced by a totally different vibe. He was straight up mocking him while demanding he pay up for the chips Ren used. Ren just furrowed his brow, pretending to be confused. He asked when he ever agreed to owe anything. The employee got closer, explaining that the chips weren't some kind of gift. They were loans, and he added that every single chip was worth 100 gold coins. And with processing fees and interest, Ren was now on the hook for 250 gold coins. Smirking like a jerk, the employee suggested that if Ren couldn't pay up, he could just leave his girl behind as collateral. Lillian, totally ticked off by the scam, jumped in quick, calling him a liar and explaining to Ren that the chips weren't worth more than a single silver coin each. The employee, furious that his whole scheme was exposed, screamed at the guards to mess her up. But before he could even finish his sentence, Ren clocked him with a massive punch. It sent the guy flying backward, crashing hard into a table nearby. Ren just calmly fixed his clothes. He commented that someone like that employee had no right to be talking there. The whole casino just blew up into chaos. All the players started scrambling to grab the chips that scattered all over the floor. Ren sighed, watching them, muttering that none of these people were good for anything. Suddenly, a bossy voice echoed through the room, demanding to know who was causing all the drama. The speaker was the same dude that Ren had seen on horseback earlier. A smirk crept onto Ren's face. He had finally caught the big fish. The guy's arrival made the chaos stop instantly. He looked around the room disgusted before ordering his guards to teach the troublemakers a lesson. Without even thinking twice, the guards started wailing on the people nearby, not caring about their cries for mercy. The rest of the crowd just watched, totally terrified. They were too scared to jump in. The young master of the Elswin family just smirked at everyone watching. He threatened them to get in line or they'd face the same thing. Lillian, holding onto Lai's arm, whispered that it was all her fault. She was blaming herself for bringing them to the casino and felt so ashamed for putting Ren and Lai in such a sketchy situation. She remembered how Ren had personally taken her mom to the hospital, making sure she got treatment and promising to cover the bills. That memory fired her up. Getting her courage together, Lillian stepped forward and announced she wouldn't let them scam her brother. Her bold move caught everyone's attention. Even though most were too freaked out to react, people started whispering, wondering who she was, and how she dared to challenge someone like the young master of the Elswin family bio. The young master gave her an ice-cold stare, pissed off by her defiance. Lillian stood her ground. She accused him of using the casino to take advantage of and wreck families. She refused to let him bully Ren and Lai, calling them good people who didn't deserve to be treated like this. Bio, absolutely fuming, lunged right at her. Even though she was scared, Lillian refused to move, protecting Ren. With his small bod before Bayo could even mess the guy up, Ren jumped in and blocked the hit, grabbing his arm. Then Ren fired up his system's skill to check out Bio's stats, and the results showed they were seriously weak. Just 5 loyalty points and a personality that was all about being savage and thirsty for violence. Ren immediately pegged the Elswin family as a huge threat, the kind of people who would stab you in the back without a second thought. Since he got blocked, Bayo glared at Ren, totally ticked off, and called him out for breaking the casino's rules. Ren, totally calm, let go of his arm and shot back that he understood the rules just fine. In this world, power runs the show, and the strongest people make the rules. Bayo just smirked, looking super smug. Totally convinced he was the baddest dude in the city. He asked Ren why he was still brave enough to stand up to him, asking if Ren even had a clue who he was. Ren's expression stayed solid as he replied, full of confidence, saying he didn't need to know who Bayo was. The only thing that mattered was his own strength, since his fist was bigger, and his word was the final say. With that, he clapped, signaling his soldiers to storm the casino. Then the scene switched over to a massive banquet held for Ren, pulling in all the most important and powerful people in the city, each one with their own sketchy plans. Among the guests was Lucas, the leader of a high-class family. Lucas was planning on working with the city lord during the banquet to put Ren in his place. He planned on using Bayo to get an in with Ren, who he could then totally manipulate. But he was thrown off when Bayo didn't show up. Frustrated, he figured out he couldn't just rely on the incompetence of the city lord and that he'd have to change his plans. While the banquet hall was buzzing with chatter, a loud voice suddenly announced Ren's arrival. The whole vibe of the room changed instantly, getting super tense and quiet as Ren walked in. His presence just demanded attention, and the guests immediately fixed their attitudes. The head of the Raven family quickly stepped up, introducing himself and offering Ren a gift. Another guest, the head of the Jose family, anxiously introduced his daughter, hoping to score some points with him. But one sharp look from Ren made the whole room go dead silent, as he told everyone to quiet down. With the whole crowd there, Ren declared it was time to officially kick things off. He motioned for his assistants to bring in a huge blueprint, a strange object that instantly grabbed everyone's attention. Pointing to the blueprint, Ren explained that it was the design for a dam he had drawn up earlier that afternoon. He mentioned he'd be recruiting some skilled builders while it was being made to iron out all the small details. The room filled up with whispers as the guests traded confused looks. Someone asked out loud what a dam was, wondering if it was some kind of tool for fishing. Ren quickly called for quiet and told Leah to show a map of the region. With the room now silent, he started his presentation. Ren explained that during his tour of Island City earlier that morning, he had pinpointed the root cause of the city's yearly floods, a poorly managed channel way up north. By building a dam in that spot, they could control the flow of water, using it to water the fields, to hold water during the dry season and then let it out during the rainy season to stop floods. Lucas was totally tuned in. He couldn't help but be impressed for real. The plan was genius. He realized that if the dam actually got built, it would seriously boost the city's food game. For the first time ever, he had to admit Ren had a crazy sharp and creative mind. Then some old dude in the crowd was like, "So what's this got to do with us?" And Ren just calmly explained that he needed their cash to fund the dam. That announcement totally shook the crowd, and everyone started complaining. A bunch of them were like, "We're too broke to chip in." Lucas just stayed quiet, low-key thinking that even though Ren was smart, He was also kinda clueless for expecting these hustlers to just hand over their money. But plot twist, Ren wasn't as naive as they thought. He just smiled and told them not to worry about being broke. He had a plan to make them all rich. Ren then spilled the tea that earlier that day he'd raided a casino and snagged almost 50,000 gold coins. He then hinted that there were a bunch more casinos in Island City just waiting for the same treatment. That news left everyone completely stunned. Their minds were racing, trying to figure out what it all meant. Some started whispering nervously, wondering if their cut of the casino's profits was now totally gone. Others were just praying that the casino he hit wasn't one they'd invested in. Then it clicked that the biggest casino in Island City belonged to Mr. Andron, which basically meant Ren had just picked a fight with a super powerful dude. Lucas, who was acting all chill, but was secretly fuming, stepped up to confront Ren. He called him out for breaking the law by shutting down a legit business without permission. Lucas was all like, "You can't just ignore the laws of the Coral Empire," and warned Ren that there would be consequences. A bunch of others quickly jumped in, backing Lucas up. They accused Ren of going way over the line and kept saying that the casinos were totally legal businesses. The crowd started feeling bolder and ganged up behind Lucas. But Ren was completely unfazed by all their complaining. He just stayed cool and called them out, saying, "When I asked for cash, you all said you were broke. But now that there's a chance to make some serious bank, suddenly you're all worried about the rules." He pointed out that most of them were in on the casino action anyway and warned them that this was their last shot to save face, or he'd have to handle things himself. Right then, Ren's soldiers moved forward, a clear flex to show who was in charge. Lucas, speaking for everyone, insisted that the Grand Duke would never sign off on Ren's wild moves. Others chimed in, begging Ren to rethink his whole plan and telling him to chill out a bit. Ren just grinned, his plan totally coming together. With a boss-like vibe, he announced he'd be happy to talk about the law with them. His voice was chill but firm, as he ordered his guys to bring in the people who would help clear things up. The whole crowd went dead silent. The nervous vibe was so thick you could cut it with a knife as they waited to see what Ren was going to do next. Ren gave the signal and his crew dragged these two dudes they snagged at the casino into the hall. Lucas, who was just chilling with all the fancy people, totally froze up when he saw them. Like those two were always with Bio. Seeing them pop up out of nowhere had Lucas bugging, and he started thinking something bad must have gone down with his son. The guys were brought in all tied up and gagged so they couldn't say a thing. Ren, playing it super cool, turned to Lucas and was like, "You know these guys?" Lucas, trying to keep a straight face, denied it and asked what Ren was even getting at. Ren just smirked a little, trying to tell Lucas to chill out and not get so worked up. He explained it was no biggie, just that those two dudes had tried to take him out yesterday. Giving Lucas a major side-eye, Ren added that the guys claimed they ran the city of Iselena and even hinted they had some serious backup. Lucas's whole vibe got dark, even though he was trying hard to keep his cool. Dude was high-key sweating bullets, trying to hide how shook he was. Ren told his squad to untie the two guys, suggesting they let everyone at the party see if anyone knew them. All the nobles in the room started giving each other awkward looks. A bunch of them knew right away those were the servants of Bio. The whole room got hella scared once they realized what Ren was really saying. Lucas, seeing how bad this looked, didn't even hesitate. He grabbed a knife off the table and straight up lunged at the two dudes with so much rage it shocked everyone. He started yelling that they were just some miserable nobodies who had the nerve to go after the Duke's son, and then he iced them fast. Blood went everywhere and the whole room went dead silent while the other rich folks just watched, totally freaked out and too scared to do anything. Standing over the bodies, Lucas turned to Ren, putting on this fake "my bad" face. He started apologizing like crazy, claiming he just lost it when he heard someone tried to off him and basically begged Ren to forgive him. Ren, who totally saw this coming, just gave him a knowing smile and even hyped Lucas up for his so-called sense of justice. He praised him for being a noble who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Lucas, low-key relieved, thanked Ren for the props, acting like he just did what had to be done. But Ren was not done yet. Super chill, he told his crew to bring in the main guy behind the whole thing, to see if any other nobles in the room had the same principles as Lucas. That command made Lucas get all tense again. His son Bio got dragged into the room real quick. The second he walked in, Bio, who was totally clueless about what was going on, started yelling at the soldiers to let him go. He was flexing about his dad's power, threatening that everyone there was gonna pay once he was loose. Lucas's face just dropped when he saw his son. All that cocky attitude he had vanished when he realized why Bio had been MIA from the party. Bio, seeing his two homies laid out on the floor, totally lost it. He started dissing Ren, threatening to mess him up bad once he got free. Ren, not even bothered by the tantrum, just laughed. He was like real sarcastic. Damn, Bio doesn't just want to unalive me, he sounds super hyped to inflict as much pain as possible. Bio kept on tripping, bragging that nobody in Nissan dared to step to him and that Ren was basically a dead man walking. Ren then turned to Lucas, asking if he was cool with what his son was spouting. Bio, totally clueless about who Ren really was, just laughed and roasted him even harder. Right when Bio was about to spill the tea on Lucas's identity, his dad cut him off super harshly. Lucas, totally freaking out, now went off on Bio, calling him a disobedient kid. He ordered Bio to get on his knees for Ren. But when his son hesitated, Lucas straight up forced him down, dropping to his own knees right next to him. Lucas was totally begging Ren for mercy, pleading for forgiveness, and offering up everything he owned just so Bayo wouldn't get taken out. That's when it finally clicked for Bayo, and he remembered his dad's whole speech about making friends with the Duke's son, and you could just see the fear in his eyes. When he finally got who Ren really was, stuttering all over the place, Bayo apologized and swore he'd never act so stupid again. Ren's face stayed ice cold as he told Bayo that his soldiers and his whole vibe were all the proof he needed of his status. Lucas jumped in, swearing the Elsu family would be super loyal to Ren, even offering to hand over all their shady stuff. Ren, totally unfazed, told Lucas he'd take him up on the offer to hand over the goods. He promised him that if he came through, his family would be safe. Lucas was so relieved and thanked him a ton. But then when he looked over at the city lord, he realized his clout was basically zero now. Knowing he was out of options, Lucas whispered to Ren about a plot against the Duke. He spilled that Lord Eldry had been scheming with outside enemies to double-cross the city. That bombshell shocked the whole room, and everyone's eyes snapped to Eldry, who just froze up looking terrified. Lucas was about to drop more deets, but Ren cut him off hard. He accused Lucas of just trashing Eldry's name, and said he'd been way too nice already. Ren ordered his guards to drag Lucas and Bayo out of the room to be dealt with. Lucas was completely shook and terrified, not getting the sudden flip in Ren's attitude. Meanwhile, Eldry, breathing a sigh of relief at Ren's reaction, stepped up to pledge his loyalty. He gassed Ren up for being so wise and promised he'd have his back no matter what. Ren, with a smile, told Eldry he trusted him 100%. But low-key, Ren was using his system to scan Eldry's stats. Among all the basic stats, he found the trait greed, and saw a loyalty level of only 15. Ren decided that Eldry, just like Lucas, had to go, but for now he'd play it cool. He'd use Eldry's resources to move his own plans forward. After the party, Ren kept grinding late into the night. The nobles had coughed up over 100,000 gold coins, which is like 2 years' worth of taxes from the city of Izan. But that amount didn't even faze him. While Ren was deep in focus, Lee came into the room with a cup of tea. She put it down on the desk and noticed he looked pretty ticked off. Ren grabbed the tea and said, bitterly, asking if Liz even knew how loaded these nobles really were. She totally dodged his question and brought up something way more urgent. She asked what Ren's game plan was for what Lucas spilled at the party. Like if Lord Eldry was actually planning to backstab them, that would put Ren in some serious danger. Ren told her to chill, reassuring her it was all good. He admitted he was 100% sure Eldry was a snake. But he told Lai it wasn't the right move to throw down with him yet. Ren stretched out and stood up, explaining that Eldry Ennison's whole squad and their influence was still a total mystery. Rushing in would just make a huge mess for no reason. For now, the best play was to let Eldry think Ren was just some clueless kid who didn't see the danger coming. The next morning, Eldry met up with Guildmaster Malcolm at the Mages Guild and handed him a piece of paper. After Malcolm read it, his face got all twisted with rage, and he slammed the paper on the table, calling the whole situation bogus. Eldry, playing it cool, told him not to get so extra. He just wrote Ren off as some hot-headed noble kid thirsty to prove himself to the Grand Duke. But Malcolm was not having it. He got even more ticked off, reminding Eldry that even the Grand Duke talked to the Mages Guild with respect. Eldry, totally stoked about how mad Malcolm was celebrating inside. He thought Ren had just handed him the perfect chance to get the guild on his side, something he couldn't pull off before. As Malcolm stormed out, paper in hand, swearing he was going to demand an explanation from Ren, Eldry was low-key celebrating, sure that Ren was about to get totally ghosted. Meanwhile, Ren was in his study sketching out plans for some big water construction project. The work made him think about all the crap he'd put up with in his past life. Lee came in to tell him he had a surprise visitor. Guildmaster Malcolm was there and was demanding to see him. Surprised, Ren headed straight to the main room to meet him. The second Ren walked in, Malcolm went off on him in a rage, slamming a recruitment flyer on the table and accusing Ren of dissing the Mages Guild. Ren, totally confused, asked him to explain. Malcolm pointed at the flyer, which said that no mages, disabled people or old folks would be hired for Ren's project. He demanded to know why Ren would post something like that. Ren looked over the paper and calmly explained that it was all for the dam construction project, not seeing how the flyer was an insult to the guild. But Malcolm wasn't buying it, accusing Ren of straight-up provocation. He argued that by leaving out mages, Ren was disrespecting the guild and its members. Ren was shook, because he didn't get why mages would even be competing for manual labor jobs. Still furious, Malcolm warned Ren that if he didn't give a good explanation, every single mage in the guild would refuse to work for him. Ren frowned and quietly pulled up his system to scan Malcolm's stats. The system showed that Malcolm's loyalty level was at 82 and that his personality was basically curious and blunt. Ren figured out that Malcolm had been played. Smiling, Ren patiently laid out his reasoning. He dropped 3 key points first mages have: limited mana, and could only do a tiny bit of work each day, which made them a bad fit for a huge construction job. Second, their pay was equal to like 10 regular workers, making them way too expensive. Third, as a noble, it was Ren's duty to prioritize the regular folks who didn't have the guild's backup. Malcolm, though, was still not convinced. He argued that magic was like worshipped in their world, and that people with no magic talent deserved to be stepped on by mages. Ren, totally salty about that take, was like, yeah, maybe that's how it is now. But then he clapped back hard, saying he was gonna flip the script. He said starting in Island City, he'd prove that mages ain't any different from regular people. Malcolm, feeling majorly dissed, basically gave him an ultimatum demanding that Ren take back what he said or get ready to face the heat from the Mages Guild. Ren's whole vibe went ice cold as he told Malcolm to watch his mouth. Lai, who was right there, put a blade right to Malcolm's throat, her eyes looking straight up deadly. Malcolm totally froze up, scared stiff, while Ren, all chill, pointed out that there was like a legit law that let a noble take someone out for disrespecting them. Ren was like, let's test that law with a little slice and see who the court sides with. Shaking like a leaf, Malcolm immediately started backtracking, saying it was his bad and begging for forgiveness. Ren could see Malcolm wasn't trying to be a traitor or anything, and figured the guildmaster was just clueless, not actually malicious, so he decided not to blow it up. He told Lai to walk Malcolm out. Malcolm thanked Ren and bounced out of there real quick. The system pinged Ren that he'd finished a noob quest. He'd used the investigation feature on 10 different people. He got a reward and a new quest popped up, train 5 characters with high stats. Pretty stoked with his progress. Ren decided he'd check his loot later. Outside the mansion, this other dude was waiting for Malcolm. The second he saw the guildmaster, he rushed over acting all concerned and asked how the meeting went. Malcolm, still feeling totally owned, just sighed and admitted that Ren wouldn't listen and even kicked him out. The other guy, frustrated but quick on his feet, cooked up another plan. He told Malcolm he had a fix that wouldn't just make Ren change his mind, but would have him bowing down to the Mages Guild, especially after his first plan totally bombed. So this dude came up with another angle. He pushed Malcolm to get the townspeople to refuse to work for Ren, thinking that if everyone bailed, Ren would have to come crawling to Malcolm for help. But Malcolm shot that idea down instantly. He pointed out that Ren was offering some sweet working conditions, and there was no way the townies would turn that down. Not giving up, the guy suggested a different play. He proposed that if the people working for Ren were made to look lazy and useless, Ren would eventually get fed up with the peasants. Malcolm was like, nah, that's dumb, explaining his beef was only with Ren refusing to hire mages. He had no problem with the peasants. He wasn't about to act out against Ren over something so petty. But the dude kept pushing, telling Malcolm to rethink it. He argued that the peasants' own laziness was the real reason they were starving and struggling to get by. The dude was like, if the land couldn't grow crops, why weren't they getting off their butts and hunting for food? He was sure that people that lazy would never actually work hard for Ren. Reluctantly, Malcolm agreed to give the plan a shot. Meanwhile, Ren's help wanted sign got posted up in the middle of the town square, and it pulled a huge crowd like instantly. All the villagers gathered around to read the notice, curious about the new lord's plans to build something about his call for workers, and when they read the notice, they were totally shook by what the job offered. It was an 8-hour shift from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 3 meals a day, and a salary of 10 coins a day. Some dude in the crowd was super skeptical. He was wondering why the new boss was being so generous, and others felt the same, thinking it was probably a scam. A bunch of them remembered how the nobles had totally played them before, and some argued that working under those conditions could be super sketchy and maybe even get them taken out. That's when Lillian stepped up, her voice all strong and determined. She defended Ren, saying he'd promised to make life better for everyone. Her sincerity just got her laughed at and clowned on. The crowd blew her off like she was naive, roasting her for trusting some noble. Even Lillian's own dad jumped in. He accused her of being totally under Ren's spell. Ignoring her dad's comments and the villagers' teasing, Lillian announced that she was going to sign up for the dam project. The recruiter, a young guy who was running the sign-ups, stayed totally chill even with the crowd being so sus. He turned to Lillian's dad. He invited him to work on the dam, but said Lillian couldn't join. Lillian, totally confused, demanded to know why she was being sidelined. She insisted she was healthy and totally capable, but the recruiter explained that Ren had laid down some strict rules that banned anyone under 18 from working. He stressed that hiring underage workers without Ren's okay would lead to some serious punishment. Handing her dad a sign-up form, he went over the terms again. 3 meals a day, an 8-hour shift, and a salary of 10 coins daily. If they were cool with that, he told Lillian's dad to sign the form and start work the next day. Even though she was a little bummed, Lillian encouraged her dad to do his best and not slack off. Her dad, smiling warmly, patted her on the head and reassured her. He swore he'd quit gambling for good and promised not to let Ren down. He also reminded Lillian to stay home the next day and to look after their mom, since her illness meant she couldn't do any tough chores. Before Lillian and her dad could leave, the recruiter called them back, asking them to return. Lillian's dad, surprised, stopped. He asked if there was a problem. The recruiter, looking kinda worried, mentioned he'd overheard her dad say his wife was really sick. Lillian's dad quickly clarified that yeah, his wife definitely couldn't work because of her condition. The recruiter gave a kind smile and calmed him down, assuring him he wasn't asking his wife to work. He explained that Ren had arranged for the workers' families to stay in a dorm for the whole time the project was happening. Seeing her dad's confused look, the recruiter clarified that the dorms were basically temporary housing units for the families who were helping with the dam construction. Once the project was done, the families could go back to their original homes. Totally moved by that level of generosity, Lillian's dad dropped to his knees. He was super emotional and expressed his deep gratitude to the recruiter. The young guy quickly stepped forward to help him up, insisting that kind of thing wasn't necessary. Then he offered to show them a room where they could stay, letting them pick their own place. The villagers who had been watching the whole exchange were completely floored, finally realizing that Ren's promises were legit. People started mobbing the signups for work, and the whole place went totally nuts, as everyone scrambled to get their name on the list, hyped to get in on the opportunity. Meanwhile, back in his office, Ren was scrolling through system updates when a notification popped up. Congrats, you've received the lithium battery blueprint from the newbie gift pack. Instead of being stoked, Ren just got super annoyed. He muttered to himself, totally questioning the system's logic. Without a generator, a battery was basically useless. Like, did the system expect him to summon a lightning bolt? After venting, he chilled out and started to think. Ren's mind turned to the task of training 5 individuals with some seriously high stats. He had zero clue where to find people like that. At first, he thought about training Lai, but a quick scan of his data through the system showed he'd already maxed out his potential, with no room left to level up. After weighing his options, Ren figured his best bet was to scout for some talented people within the island city. As Ren was thinking about his next moves, there was a knock on the door. Lai's voice called out from the other side, letting him know Lillian had come to see him. Ren told him to let her in, and Lillian stepped inside. Ren gave her the go-ahead, and Lillian walked into the room, her face all tight with worry. She quickly explained that something was seriously wrong at the construction site. The workers were way too sluggish to work. Ren was thrown by the news and asked her to spill the deets. She broke down what she'd seen during her visit to the site. She'd gone to check on her dad and noticed that none of the workers seemed to have any energy to get their jobs done. At first, she just thought they were slacking, but her dad explained that everyone felt crazy tired when they woke up. It wasn't just him. All the workers were in the same boat. Lillian tried to hype them up, reminding them about all the sweet perks Lord Ren had hooked them up with. But it was like talking to a brick wall. The workers insisted their exhaustion wasn't on purpose. They literally had zero strength to work. Some were guessing their bodies just weren't used to the grind after such a long time of doing nothing. Others suggested taking a day off to recover before getting back to it. Lillian, though, was not buying any of it, saying there's no such thing as that kind of sickness. She was totally convinced they were just being lazy. When she realized trying to motivate them was a total bust, she decided to take it straight to Ren. After hearing her story, Ren didn't waste a second and booked it to the construction site. When he got there, he saw the workers for himself. Their sluggishness was legit. To get a better handle on the situation, Ren used his system skills to scan their stats. At first glance, everything looked normal. But then he spotted a major red flag. All the workers were under a curse. Ren turned to Lillian and calmly explained the deal. They're not sick, they're cursed. Realizing the workers were cursed, Ren started checking out the construction site, thinking about his next move. He decided it was time to test out his new skill, the geological survey. He'd originally planned on using this skill during the dam construction, but the current situation was an emergency. With this ability, Ren could analyze all kinds of geological features, including like the mineral makeup water sources and the lay of the land in the area Ren set. A sec later, the system fired up and started scanning a whole 10-kilometer radius. The results just downloaded straight into his brain, and the scan basically confirmed there were no valuable resources like oil or metals. Total bust. Total. But then something kinda sus caught Ren's eye, and trusting his gut, he went and asked Lillian's dad for a hand. He needed help digging at a specific spot, and the guy was totally down, saying he'd work his butt off for Ren. After digging about 1 meter down, the crew uncovered this weird black rock, and Ren crouched down to get a closer look. He was wondering what it was, and Lai, who was nearby, was totally shook that Ren could even sense the weak magic vibe coming off the rock, something that even a pro like her had completely missed. Ren told the group to be super careful getting the crystal out and to stash it safely in a box. Then he turned to Lai and was like, "So what's the normal way you guys deal with people who've been cursed?" Lai, kinda caught off guard by the question, explained that curses are usually handled by priests at a church or by some high-level mages from the Mage Association. When he heard this, Ren's face soured because he suspected the Mage Association was connected. He decided to take Lillian and her dad to the local church to get some help. Lillian, all worried, asked if her dad was for real cursed. Ren told her not to stress, promising he'd make whoever was responsible pay for what they did. The squad bounced over to the church real quick, where they were met by this absolutely gorgeous priestess. She gave Ren a super warm welcome. She had this totally chill and peaceful vibe, but Ren, always being careful, used his system to run a loyalty check on her. Before he trusted her with the job, the system instantly spit out her stats: a loyalty level of 95% race, identified as an elf, and an actual age of around 257 years, even though she didn't look a day over 24. Ren was shocked to find out she wasn't human, but he felt way better seeing her high loyalty score. The priestess introduced herself as Eri and called herself the Holy Maiden of the Church. She politely asked what brought them there, gesturing toward Lillian's dad. Ren explained that the guy seemed to be cursed and asked if Eri could help. Eri nodded confidently and started to check the man out. She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them with this golden glow, scanning him intensely. After a moment, she confirmed Ren's suspicion was on the money and started the treatment, summoning a glowing orb of light. She aimed it at the man's body, instantly yeeting the dark energy out of him. The guy immediately felt re-energized. He was super grateful to Ren and promised he'd get right back to work. Ren just smiled and told him to just chill and make sure everything was 100% okay before going back. Then he grabbed the box with the black crystal in it and asked Eri for her take on it. Eri looked at the crystal really carefully, identifying it as a magic crystal that was juiced up with a serious amount of magic energy. She explained that energy like that is usually used to cast curses, but she made it clear that this particular curse was more like a prank, just designed to make someone tired, not to cause any real damage. That whole explanation was kinda sketch, and totally freaked Ren out. He was like, "Yo, are those crystals hard to whip up?" Eri said that for a top-tier mage, popping out one crystal a day is basically a cakewalk, so they could just sprinkle them all over the construction site, no sweat. Ren's whole vibe just tanked when he realized someone was messing with them on purpose. Eri had to give it up for Ren's project, though, saying it was fire how it was cutting down on the number of people needing a handout from the church. Ren, now like 100% sure who was behind it, was ready to throw down and asked Eri if they could just like yeet the curse from the whole construction site. But Eri, being a total bummer, told him that was a no-go. Just picking off the crystals one by one every day would just drag the whole project out forever. Ren let out a massive sigh. He knew they had to get to the bottom of this mess. Then Eri was like, "Yo, I might know someone who can help." But she warned him this person was a total weirdo. She dropped an addy, and Ren decided to scope it out. So Ren and Lai rolled up to this massive mansion that Eri had pointed out as Selena's crib, you know, the ex-head of the whole Mages Association. They walked up to the door and Ren gave it a solid knock, totally determined. All of a sudden, Lai's spidey senses went off and she yanked Ren out of the way like ASAP. Literally seconds later, boom! The top floor of the mansion just blew up, sending smoke and junk flying everywhere. Ren was totally shook. He demanded to know what the heck was going on. Then out of the smoke, this total knockout of a woman appeared, her voice just dripping with frustration. She was cussing out her failed experiment, swearing she'd nail it next time, even if she had to like blow the whole island city off the map. Once they got inside, Ren calmly laid it all out for Selena, explaining the sitch and asking for her help. But she just straight up shut him down, totally ghosting his request. She told Ren she was busy, geeking out over some new magic gadget, and had zero time for his drama. Ren was curious though and was like, "Spill the tea." He asked if she meant something like a magic wand. Selena just laughed in his face, totally roasting him for being so basic. Lai, with her Ice Queen vibe, jumped in right away, warning Selena to watch her tone when talking to young Master Ren. Selena, clearly cheesed off by Lai calling her out, just looked her up and down, smirked, and was like, "Damn girl, your magic power is on another level." Then she suggested Lai stick around and be her assistant. And in return, she promised she'd help Ren out once her research was a success. Sparks of lightning were literally crackling around Selena as she flexed her power. Lai, totally unfazed, just got ready to clap back. Her voice was pure ice as she offered to teach Selena some manners. Ren could feel the bad vibes escalating, so he jumped between them, telling Lai to chill. He reminded her they were there to ask for a favor, not to throw hands. Then he turned to look at the total mess that was Selena's workstation and asked if she made all the random stuff spread out on the table. He wanted to know if they were like magic gadgets. Selena's eyes lit up with pride as she confirmed it, but then she clarified that everything on the table was a total fail. She explained she was trying to build a magic device that could basically bottle up lightning magic inside her own body. Ren was floored, his mind totally blown by the idea, comparing it to storing up electricity. Selena was like, "Yeah, you got it," and mentioned that the whole explosion thing happened because her gadgets couldn't handle her insane power level. Then she tried to kick him out again, saying she needed to crash and get back to her research. Ren paused for a sec, thinking before he shot his shot, and told Selena that if he helped her build the gadget she needed, she'd have to help him out with his drama with the Mage Guild. Selena, totally skeptical and annoyed, just blew him off, claiming his research was way too next level for some random dude like him to solve. Ren, staying super chill, was like, "Nah, for real, I got this." He promised he'd help her make the magic device and just asked for her to have his back in return. Selena was intrigued but still kinda sus, but she finally agreed with one condition: if Ren actually pulled it off, he wouldn't just have to deal with Malcolm, but he'd also have to make sure the whole Mage Guild did whatever she said. But like if he failed, she wouldn't even hesitate to mess him up. Not wasting any time, Ren told Selena to get all the necessary materials ready, using the blueprint the system gave him. He got to work assembling a lithium battery pack, which was basically 8 massive batteries all wired together. Despite busting his butt, Ren was low-key stressing because they didn't have a solid power source to even test the thing. Since they didn't have a hydro generator or whatever, they had no choice but to bet on Selena's magic as a substitute. Selena followed Ren's instructions and put the parts together, but she was still giving him major side-eye. She reminded him that most of the materials couldn't handle her magic power and warned him the whole thing could just like blow up. Ren, totally unfazed, just handed her the cables and told her to chill. He explained that the battery pack could hold about 185 watt-hours and told her to just channel her energy into it. Super reluctantly, Selena started to juice it up with her magic, and to her total shock, the device just soaked up her energy with zero issues. Curious, she cranked up the power, but the battery stayed completely stable. Selena was shook. She was trying to figure out why the gadget hadn't exploded. Ren just smirked and started trolling her, suggesting maybe her magic power wasn't all that. Pissed off, Selena unleashed her full power like going max output. The battery pack stayed totally stable, not even a scratch. Selena was literally speechless, seeing how much juice the device could hold, and how easily Ren had slapped it together. Ren, feeling pretty smug, stepped up to check the charge level. The battery was at 87% capacity. On the inside, he was geeking out over how strong Selena was. She'd charged almost the whole pack, enough to power an electric car for over 3,000 kilometers. Ren's confidence was through the roof as he turned to Selena and announced his plans to totally shake up the Mage Guild. He called them potential power banks and explained his vision for their magic skills. Intrigued, Selena asked if Ren could use lightning magic himself. Ren didn't say no, but instead he was like, it might be that everyone in the island city could actually use magic. Selena, still skeptical, pointed out that not just anyone can learn magic, but Ren stayed super chill about it. He hinted that he had a magic device that was even more OP than the battery pack, and promised to show her a world where magic was for everyone if she agreed to help him. Selena was both confused and curious, like she couldn't even imagine that, but she decided to keep working with him anyway. The next day at the Mage Guild, Malcolm was just chilling reading a book, totally confident that Ren would come crawling to him for help any minute. His calm vibe was totally wrecked by Selena's sudden arrival. When he saw her walk in, Malcolm just froze, completely shook. Whoa, the ex-head of the Mage Guild, literally the last person he expected to see. He totally stammered a sketchy hey. He was bugging out, wondering why she was even there. Then Selena just went off on Malcolm, her voice totally laced with fury. She was calling him out for having the nerve to go against the Grand Duke's house. Every word she said was like a knife. Seriously sharp, asking if he was trying to start some kind of rebellion. Malcolm looked totally freaked. He was a nervous wreck, denying everything. He swore to Selena he'd never even think of pulling something that wild. Selena was not buying it. She grabbed him by the collar, totally done with his games. She demanded the real story, telling him to spill what he did at Ren's construction site. Shaking, Malcolm caved instantly. He fessed up to getting all the mages from the guild together and getting them all riled up. He told them that young Master Ren had dissed them. He even admitted he told the mages to whip up some crystals, ones without any curse dampeners, and use teleportation magic to plant them underground at the site. The whole point was to make the workers feel super drained, hoping Ren would just call them lazy. Malcolm's endgame was to make Ren say sorry and try to work more closely with the Mage Guild. Selena was just listening, half in disbelief and half totally annoyed. Shaking her head, she called Malcolm an idiot and said he'd been played. When Malcolm, still clueless, asked who played him, Selena just blew off the question. Instead, she ordered him to get all the mages back, the ones involved in the sabotage, right now. Malcolm just nodded real quick and bolted to do what she said. As soon as Malcolm dipped, Selena pulled out a talisman to hit up Ren. She let him know she'd handled the situation with the Mage Guild. Through the talisman, Ren was super grateful, thanking her for the assist. Selena got curious and asked if he needed a hand dealing with Elric, offering to, make him ghost without a trace. Ren shot that down real fast, like he was waving it away. Even though he couldn't see her, he explained that Eldrin wasn't a big deal right now, and that he was basically bait for a bigger threat. Selena was cool with Ren's call and agreed to stay out of it. Her vibe totally switched to hyped when she brought up those new inventions Ren mentioned before. She was bugging him for all the deets, asking when they'd be ready and demanding he hit her up the second he started on them. Ren calmed her down, promising he'd keep her in the loop, but he stressed that it was super important for the guild mages to finish juicing up the battery packs first. The next day, over at the city lord's place, Eldry met up with some shady guy covered in shadows. Looking totally stressed, he reported that Ren had already taken over the Mage Guild. He was all nervous, asking what to do. The mystery dude was super chill and dismissive about it, saying the Mage Guild was basically no real threat. Except for Selena anyway. He switched the topic to Ren's dam project, warning that if the dam actually worked, it could totally hype up the people of Isaac. And that was a big no-no for them. Eldry promised the guy he'd already set traps for Ren, and then spilled about another plan he was cooking up. To pressure the nobles in charge of the food supply to jack up the prices, basically to sabotage everything Ren was doing. So when the mystery dude started doubting if the nobles were loyal, Eldry was all confident, explaining that even though the nobles might double-cross him, they'd never turn on their own wallets. With a smirk, Eldry flipped a gold coin in the air and was like, Ren's cash is gonna run out way before that dam is finished, no cap. When the coin hit the table, the mystery guy just vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, over at the packed market, Lillian was grabbing supplies for the construction site when some shopkeeper rudely told her to bounce. His tone was super condescending, telling her to dip if she couldn't afford the stuff. Lillian, totally frustrated, called out the insane price hike. The day before, 2 sacks of grain were 1 gold coin, but now a single sack was going for 2 gold coins. The shopkeeper, not even bothered, got all cocky, saying he could set whatever prices he wanted. He totally clowned her for being broke, and even raised his hand like he was gonna hit her. All the drama got everyone's attention, and a lot of them were so mad about what the shopkeeper was doing. Lillian, dead set on getting her job done for Ren, accused the merchants of hoarding and warned them Ren would be pissed. The shopkeeper just scoffed, blowing off her threat. He claimed his business was legit and that Ren had no reason to get involved. Over at the church, Ari was also just as livid about the crazy price surge. She noticed food prices had like tripled in just 3 days, leaving her with not enough grain to get everyone through the winter. She handed a bag of coins to her assistant, Era, and told her to buy whatever she could, promising she'd figure out the rest later. Era was hesitant, shook by the crazy amount of money, and pointed out that bribing the guards usually cost way less. Eri just sighed and told Era to just do what she said, no questions asked. Before Era could even move, Lee just popped up out of nowhere, snatched the bag super fast, and handed it over to Ren. Looking all chill but serious, Ren suggested they team up, proposing they work together on a bigger plan, one that would get to the bottom of the crisis and stop the merchants from ripping everyone off. Eri gave him a sus look, questioning what kind of team-up he was even talking about. Ren just smiled at how guarded she was, telling her to chill out and not be so uptight about working together. Then he just casually dropped that he knew she was an elf. Ari, though low-key freaking out that Ren had figured out her secret, kept her cool and denied it, insisting that like no way an elf would be living in a human city. Ren, totally unfazed, tossed her a bag of coins again and promised he wasn't trying to cause drama for her or her people. Ari, dodging the topic, changed the subject back, asking again what kind of team-up he meant. Ren pointed at some food sacks on a cart nearby and explained he wanted to work together to fix the whole food supply mess in the city. Even though Ari respected Ren's hustle, she was seriously doubting he could handle a problem that was like this deep. She was super open about her skepticism, which made Ren ask why she felt that way. Ari spilled the tea, explaining that the food supply in Ani was basically controlled by 4 major families who'd been running the city forever. For like over a century, these families were gatekeeping the prices for real, and their clout was untouchable. She reminded Ren that even though he went all tough guy at that recent banquet to psych some of them out, they were some sneaky dudes who would for sure figure out a way to get their cash back. Ren cut her off, totally curious about how she knew so much about the city's whole scene. Arya admitted she'd lived in Island for over 120 years and totally got its whole vibe. She also suggested that if Ren had just taken out the ELN family at the banquet, there might have been a chance to make things cool. But now it was way too late. Ari added that because of the war and natural disasters, food was already super scarce, and if prices stayed jacked up, her tribe would have a hard time making it through winter. Ren cut her off again, his look totally determined. He promised Ari that bet in like 2 weeks the food prices in Iceland would drop to levels even lower than before the recent price hike. Over at Agaste's Ken's mansion, the head of the Klein fam, they were having a total party. Agastes was giving a shout out to Eldry for the backup, admitting their team-up led to some major bank. Others in the room were hyping him up too, raising their glasses to toast Agastes and their shared W. The vibe was lit as the whole crew celebrated the money they just raked in, totally confident in their game plan. Their celebration got crashed by a servant who announced Ren had invited them to a banquet at his mansion. One of the guys was totally shook by the news. He nervously wondered if Ren was planning to come after them, turning to Agastes, asking what the move was. Agastes, all calm and calculating, told them to chill, promising they had nothing to be scared of. He explained that their whole food supply business was 100% legit and protected by the system they'd set up. He stressed that as long as they didn't straight up beef with Ren, they wouldn't be in any danger. He pointed out that the combined strength of their 4 families was no joke and that not even the king had the juice to mess with food prices. With that logic, the group finally relaxed, accepting that their spot was secure. Agastes suggested that if Ren tried to pressure them, they could just make a small gesture and drop the prices a tiny bit, maybe by like 5 copper coins, but he gave them a serious warning that anyone who snitched would face some major heat. With their confidence back, Agastes hyped up the crew to get ready for the banquet. At Ren's mansion, a servant told him that Agastes and his guests had rolled up. Ren told the servant to let them in and make sure the kitchen was cooking up some grub. When Agastes and the others walked in, Ren instantly clocked their deliberate attempt to look all poor and pathetic. Their usual fancy clothes were swapped for some raggedy outfits. Amused, he thought to himself, wow, they are so bad at this. Keeping a straight face, Ren greeted him with fake surprise, commenting on how wild it was to see the big shot who controlled the city's food supply looking so down and out. Agastes clapped back real quick, gassing up Ren's projects and claiming they were all about helping the community too. Another dude jumped in, explaining that under Agastes' lead, they didn't just drop cash for Ren and his projects, but they'd also been selling food from their own stash, at like rock-bottom prices, even taking an L on it just to help out the locals. Lai, who was just watching them act, so shameless, felt nothing but major cringe. Their super obvious lies and attempts to play Ren didn't even faze her. But Ren, though, just played along, thanking them for getting it, and saying he was like totally touched by their support. He explained he'd invited them over to talk about the grain trade plan, but before Ren could even get another word out, Agastes cut him off, claiming they totally got Ren's money problems. He repeated that at the current price of 2 gold coins, a bag for food, they were already in the red. All the other guys were nodding along, vibing with it, backing up what Agastes was saying. Ren just smirked and made his real play clear. He suggested jacking up the price of food in the city to 4 gold coins a bag starting the very next day. His announcement totally shook the nobles. Agastes, all confused, was like, wait, for real, you're actually gonna raise the prices? Ren confirmed it super chill, but also dead serious, explaining that not only was the price jumping to 4 gold coins, but he was also going to take a 30% cut of all the sales. When Ren dropped the bomb that the grain price would shoot up to 4 gold coins a bag with a 30% commission going straight to him, Agastes looked totally lost. He asked if Ren misspoke or something, not even sure if he heard that right. Ren didn't repeat himself, he just calmly reminded Agastes about the 30% cut he'd be taking. The second he said that, Agastes and the other nobles shot each other these super satisfied looks. At first, they'd totally slept on him, thinking Ren was just some skilled Nordine kid. Now they were thinking he was a slick business dude just like them. They saw Ren as someone who got it, their whole vibe, and figured with his backup their businesses would blow up. They were kicking themselves for not seeing how slick he was sooner, because they could have teamed up with him way earlier. Agastes, even though he was hyped about what Ren said, knew they couldn't just jump the gun. Without any official paperwork jacking up the prices, too high could cause a total meltdown, and maybe even mess with their own bottom line. So with that in mind, Agastes brought up his concerns politely, thanking Ren for getting it and asking when the official announcement would drop. Ren, who was totally ready for this, told Lai to hand him a document. Sounding all cheerful, he told them he'd already written up and officially stamped the notice with his family's seal, and that it would go public right after they ate. As they kept talking, Ren reminded the nobles that from now on they were playing by his rules, telling them they better learn from what went down with the Elswin family. Agastes, all eager, promised him they wouldn't let him down. After the feast, the nobles all met up again at Agastes' place. Ren's totally unexpected move had left them completely shook. They were debating whether to spill the tea to Eldri about this new development, pointing out how weird it was that Ren was jacking up the prices instead of dropping them. Some of them suspected he was just being greedy AF. But Agastes just blew off their concerns, calling it a total golden opportunity. He reminded them that if too many people got wind of their plan, their profits would take a major hit. He promised them that Ren was just some kid using perks to bait them and push them to keep the price hike on the down low. A massive fortune was right there for the taking, and only a total fool would let a chance like that slip. But even with Agastes so hyped, one of the more cautious nobles spoke up, looking worried. He admitted that in all his years he'd never stumbled upon a deal this good, which was making him feel kinda sus. Still, he swore he'd follow Agastes' lead, giving a deep bow to show he was loyal. The others quickly followed suit, all swearing they were with Agastes. Pleased, Agastes let out a big laugh, declaring that from now on they were moving as one squad. He suggested they immediately buy up all the grain from the small-time merchants before the announcement dropped, making sure they'd corner the market and max out their profits. Meanwhile, back at Ren's estate, some unexpected visitors rolled up. The scientist Era burst in, looking seriously ticked off. She straight up accused Ren of siding with the corrupt merchants, demanding to know why he'd promised to drop grain prices but then let them skyrocket. She got even more heated as she declared that she wasn't just going to stand by while the elven people got totally ripped off. Lillian quickly jumped in, trying to get her to chill out. She assured Era that Ren was going to lower food prices and asked her to just trust him. But Era, still all worked up, snapped back, insisting Ren had already teamed up with the greedy merchants. Despite that, Lillian kept her faith in Ren's choices, pleading with Era to believe in his plan. After a super tense moment of silence, Era turned to Ren, her expression a mix of doubt and worry. She asked him if he was for real, planning to jack up the food prices. Ren just smiled, but decided not to spill his whole strategy, simply promising her that food prices would drop soon. Worst case scenario, he promised they'd hit rock bottom in 2 weeks. Era, still suspicious, felt like Ren was being naive. She believed he just didn't get the harsh reality of the world. After living for over 200 years, she had never once seen food prices go down after a major spike. Ren, sensing her doubt, got serious and dropped a rhetorical question. If I put a blade to the nobles' throats, how much do you think they'd drop the price? 1 coin, 10 coins. Era had no comeback, but she was still skeptical. She argued that raising the price to 4 gold coins a bag was just insane, pointing out that at 2 gold coins, regular people were already having a hard time affording food. And with the price doubled, people starving seemed pretty much guaranteed. Ren kept his cool and explained that whether the price was 2 or 4 gold coins, people would starve either way. The only difference was when. Then he declared that just lowering the price by a few coins wouldn't even make a dent. His goal wasn't just to lower the price, but to completely bankrupt the merchants and take every last cent they had. 7 days went by, and during that time, Ren focused on teaching Selena all about how to make and use lithium batteries. Selena was totally geeking out over how complicated the device was, and completely zoned in on her lessons when she got jumped by Lai showing up out of nowhere. Lai announced she was back to hang out again. Lately, she'd been dropping by a ton, which made Ren wonder if she had way too much free time. Selena, just as curious, asked Ren why he was deliberately jacking up the food prices. By that point, the price for grain in the city had shot up to almost 7 gold coins a bag. Ren, totally shook by how fast prices climbed, didn't even get a chance to answer, cause Lai just barged into the room. She immediately started laying into him, yelling that it wasn't just regular folks, but even some of the nobles couldn't afford food anymore. She demanded to know if Ren even realized how messed up the situation had gotten. Playing it cool, Ren asked Lai how many days it had been since the price hike. Lai shot back right away, confirming it had been 7 days. When he heard that, Ren cracked a smile and said it was time to clap back at the merchants. Lai, still super ticked off, demanded Ren stop being so cryptic and just spill. She warned him that if he didn't, the whole elf tribe was about to ghost him for good. Finally, Ren gave in, explaining that he hadn't shared all the deets of his plan earlier because he was worried it would throw a wrench in things and make the nobles sus. Now that everything was in place, he was ready to break it all down. Ren revealed that the announcement setting a bottom price of 4 gold coins per bag of food had been active for 7 days. Then he hit Lai with a question asking what she thought the city was missing most right now. After thinking for a sec, she answered that it didn't really seem like they were short on anything. Ren smirked, vibing with her answer, and calmly replied, what the city needs are merchants who will actually sell grain.